The Kaltharian Empire had dominated space warfare for 2 millennia using advanced cloaking technology that made their ships completely invisible. However, when they encountered humanity, the humans defeated their stealth advantage, not through superior technology, but by employing saturation, bombardment, filling entire regions of space with overwhelming firepower that destroyed anything present, visible or not. The humans' industrial capacity allowed them to waste enormous resources on this brute force approach, rendering Kaltharian invisibility irrelevant. After suffering devastating losses, the Kaltharians were forced to withdraw, leading to peace. Negotiations. The war ultimately resulted in a beneficial alliance where both species combined their strengths. Kaltharian stealth technology with human manufacturing prowess, creating a new model for galactic cooperation. Commander Zara Hextan laid her hand on the cold metal of the viewport on the observation deck, staring through the shielded port panels at the faraway blue marble that had baffled humanity. Earth had known of their existence for 3 years now, and the Kaltharian Empire couldn't, for the lives of them, understand how a race, so recently being able to travel between planets, could rise to become the most feared military entity in their known galaxy. The irony wasn't lost on her. The Kaltharians had the ability to make entire fleets invisible to all known means of detection. Their cloaking fields could curve light back around them, absorb electromagnetic radiation, and even cloak gravitational signatures. For more than 20 centuries, these devices had rendered them the unrivaled lords of space combat. Never had an enemy been able to face a cloaked Kaltharian ship until they met humanity. Zara saw herself in the reinforced transparisteel, and she saw a woman who had been handed more losses than she could bear. Her silver hair, once a mark of pride in the Kaltharian culture, now seemed only to remind everyone that she was part of an antiquated, archaic society. Her husband always said that the Kaltharian civilization was superior, yet, somehow so. Much older, behind her, a tactical viewer spat out a grim display. Red traces tacking 17 separate sectors where somehow humans had detected and destroyed cloaked Kaltharian craft. The door at the observation deck hissed open and enstrode Admiral Corvex Thane, his footfalls thudding with the weight of a man weighted down by impossible things. His wide shoulders looked as if they might be drooping under the weight of recent losses, and the ceremonial medals on his chest suddenly felt more like anchors than honors. Council meeting went about as well as I would have thought, said, his low rumble slanting towards exhaustion from too many sleepless cycles. They're asking questions that we don't have the answers to. Zara looked away from the viewport, her amethyst eyes connecting with his molten gold ones. In the 30 years they'd worked together, she had never seen him so defeated. What was your account of the Proxima engagement? Everything about the Proxima engagement. The truth. We sent 12 of our most highly developed stealth frigates to attack a single human mining station. That our ships were utterly imperceptible to every one of their sensors we know that they have. And that, impossible as it seemed, the humans not only heard our approach, but obliterated 11 of our 12 ships before they could even open fire. What haunts Zara still is her memory of that battle. She'd been watching the engagement from the flagship, helplessly observing while their most advanced warships were shredded by what were supposed to be primitive human weapons. The pilot who survived, Lieutenant Dex Corvin, had been close to incoherent in his description of what had occurred because the experience was so traumatic. Have you had the chance to talk to Corvin yet? Zara asked. Corvax nodded grimly. This morning. He continues to demand they knew where our ships were when our stealth fields worked perfectly. Our technical analysis was that they could not have seen us, but they did. They did. For a few seconds, the two men looked at each other in silence, both trying to accept the impossible truth. The Kaltharian Empire had based the majority of its military on stealth supremacy. Their whole approach to the battle was based on the belief that if they could not be seen, they could not be lost. Somehow, though humanity had broken that basic rule, Zara stepped over to the main holoscreen and brought up the tachricon of the Proxima. Engagement. The outline upon the image was tinted blue, depicting the mining station as a small collection of interconnected buildings rotating around an airless planetoid. The Kaltharian frigates were ghostly shapes, their cloaking fields giving them only a shimmering distortion. "Watch this vector," Zara said, pointing to the course of the foremost frigate. Stealth field of 98% efficiency, no electromagnetic signature, gravitational masking optimal, by all of the metrics. That we know, this ship was fully invisible. The hologram changed to the moment of engagement. Suddenly, weapons began to fire about the station. Not pinpoint fire, but a huge, indiscriminate salvo that packed whole cubic kilometers of space with death. The cloaked Kaltharian vessels, intangible, but material nonetheless, were ensnared within the crushing snare of raw firepower. If they knew our ships were there somehow, they just didn't know where, Corvex pointed out. So instead of trying to aim, they would just fill the whole area with enough weapons fire that something in the area would get hit. Saturation bombardment, Zara said, employing the human tactical term they had picked up from intercepted communications. It is so brutal, so wasteful, so utterly opposed to every principle of righteous warfare. And to think how devastatingly powerful you'd be against stealth tech. The implications were staggering. Space combat, for 1,000 years, had been an art of precision. Ships would maneuver cautiously, trying to maximize the possibilities of being able to fire whilst reducing the likelihood of being fired upon. Weapons were costly, energy was finite, and every shot had to matter. The notion of just filling huge volumes of space with random weapons fire had gone against everything military theoreticians had presumed about war in space. But apparently, humans had never gotten that memo. Zara widened the tactical readout to display the results of their battle. The remaining Kaltharian frigate had only survived as the humans had fired so many weapons that they had effectively blotted out the ship's retreat with debris. The mining station itself was pocked with chips and gouges from their own defenses. But the humans apparently thought it a fair cost. "We have to understand how they think," Zara says. "This is not just a technical issue. This is a basic difference in military philosophy." Corvex activated his personal communicator, Voss, the security chief, to Observation Deck 7. It only took a matter of minutes for Chief Myra Voss to arrive, as efficient as ever. The head of Kaltharian military intelligence, she had spent the last 3 years attempting to decode the human behavior patterns. Her sharp, angular features curled into a permanent scowl that spoke of endless encounters with insoluble riddles. "What did you want to see me about, Admiral?" "It is your perspective on human tactical doctrine that we require," Corvex added. "What has me worried is how freely they seem to squander huge amounts of resources on inefficient strikes." Laugh was bitter, wasteful. "Admiral, I believe we have fundamentally misjudged what humans find wasteful. Let me show you something." She powered up her own datapad and sent several files to the primary holographic projector. The projection jumped to display various human military encounters from their own past, predating even their space-related advances. "This is their Second World War," Myra said. Strategic bombing and the human commander. The strategy of strategic bombing was CVE-2, developed by a human commander by the name of Curtis LeMay. The plan was to deprive the enemy of industrial might by dropping huge numbers of explosives on entire cities. The hologram displayed groups of human planes dropping thousands of bombs on different urban centers. It also was total, indiscriminate, and horrifically effective. Most military historians would say that's a waste of men, Myra said. Why blow 1,000 bombs when you can blow 10 in the right places to accomplish the same strategic goal? But people don't think in precision. They speak the language of certainty. Zara sifted through the historical records in increasing unease. They value certainty of success over efficiency. Exactly. Apply that same philosophy to our stealth technology, and their reaction makes sense. They can't see our ships, so they don't attempt to target them accurately. Instead, they simply ensure that nothing within a certain territory can live, whether or not they have spectators for their work. Korvex muttered with disbelief as he shook his head. But the resource investment has to be massive. The energy costs alone. That's another misconception, Mira said. We've been assuming that humans think like us, with humans carefully dole their resources out and plan for longer campaigns. But man has a thing he calls overwhelming force. They hold that devoting great resources to an assault aimed at winning rapid, definitive victory is inherently more efficient than trying to win slowly and cautiously. The holographs changed once more to that of human mining operations in the Sol system. Huge automated plants would feed the raw material, processed asteroid, into itself at an astonishing rate. Yards teeming in orbiting Earth and Mars. Cracked off new ships with industrial production that eclipsed even the wildest Kaltharian forecasts. They have a different industrial base than we do, Myra said. We're building ships that will last ships for hundreds of years, using skilled craft work, good material use. Humans make ships to get scrapped. They can afford to squander ammunition, for if it is used up, they will have but to make more, and in this they will certainly use up our ammunition, a thing which no one thought possible until a few months ago. Zara shivered when it dawned on her the true significance. They are not only prepared to fire across vast regions of space with weapons, they are willing to go further than we were and are. They can get away with doing it on a regular basis. Our previous calculations indicate that the amount of human ammunition currently being produced outpaces the entirety of all existing weapons in the Kaltharian fleet, Myra disclosed, and they're scaling production capacity exponentially. As the gravity of their situation sank in, the three men were left speechless. The Kaltharian Empire had spent countless millennia honing the practice of invisible warfare, growing so wise in their stealth technology that they'd forgotten how to combat foes who couldn't be counterflanked into disadvantageous tactical situations. Humanity had cracked the riddle of stealth, not with innovation, but through power and brute strength. Korvex crossed to the tactical display and started making some runs on it. "Let me see the Titan engagement," he barked. The hologram shifted to show another of the recent battles near the largest moon of Saturn. The mighty Kaltharian battlecruiser had been the pride of their stealth fleet, prowling human shipping lanes. The ship was outfitted with the most sophisticated cloaking device known by its engineers, one even capable of staying invisible when firing its weapons. The whole engagement had in fact been less than 4 minutes. The humans even saw our first shot, Korvex explained as they watched the tactical replay. But they didn't bother trying to shadow the ship. No, they did this instead. The screen depicted the human reaction in sickening detail. Every boat, within 50 kilometers had opened fire in all directions at once. Cargo ships, escort fighters, even civilian transports had begun firing with whatever weapons they had to hand. The area surrounding Titan became a death zone of colliding beams of energy, projectile weapons, and charges. The non-corporeal, invisible Kaltharian battlecruiser was caught in the effect, but no longer existed, torn apart in a matter of minutes. They made a weapons test range out of their own shipping lane, Zara said with grudging respect. They were in such denial, they were prepared to sacrifice their ships to send us to hell, and they had replacement ships ready in reserve for anything they were to lose. Myra said, the entire ordeal might have cost them an hour of productivity. It did, after all, cost us one of our most advanced warships and its entire crew. The tactical situation zoomed out to the larger strategic. Red signals were pointing out dozens of comparable skirmishes all over human space. In all instances, the result was identical. Kaltharian guerrilla assaults crushed beneath an indiscriminate human deluge of firepower. We have to at least entertain the possibility that the entire doctrine of our military is now obsolete, Zara said softly. Corvex's eyes of gold blazed with fury. 2 millennia of innovation brought to nothing because of the foolishness of men not fighting smart. It's not unintelligent, Mira corrected. It's different. We're playing a game of chess, and they're not even in the game. They're doing something else, he said. Their chat was broken by a hasty chime from the ship's comm system. Unknown contacts moving to intercept. Officer on deck. Lieutenant. Jenna Thrace cried out in almost controlled terror over the observation deck. Thane, report to the bridge at once. We have a situation. The 3 officers raced to the command center and found the bridge crew in a state of just barely controlled panic. Oh, you haven't seen anything yet, Lieutenant Thrace. The ship's communications officer handed Corvex a datapad, cold and pale dots, sir. The humans are within communications range of the Centauri system. They have something they're planning. It's called Operation Clean Sweep. Zara looked over Corvex's shoulder as he flicked through the intercepted signals. The language was plain, blunt human military jargon, but the implications were chilling. They are planning to scorch 17 separate star systems, free of organic life, Corvex whispered continuously. For 6 months, 17 systems, Mira asked. But there are human settlements in nearly all of those places. They're evacuating them, Jenna explained. Every civilian, every non-military installation. They're making whole star systems into free fire zones. The tactical implications were staggering. The humans had deemed invisible Kaltharian warships enough of an issue to simply vacate swathes of their space. Instead of trying to improve scanner technology or develop more advanced countermeasures, they were going to just saturate entire star systems with weapons fire, enough that whatever was there would be annihilated. Oh, really? How much firepower? Is that? Zara asked. Jenna's hands trembled as she accessed the specs. From what we can make out of these intercepts, they are putting out automated weapon platforms into each system. Orbital bombardment stations, minefields, roving patrol drones that have been programmed to shoot at anything that moves. They think they will shoot more bullets in the next 6 months that our entire empire has made in the past 100 years. Corvex slumped down into his command seat, the enormity of it all shattering what little hope he had left of winning conventionally. They're happy to render entire star systems impenetrable just to keep our stealth forces from operating there. And they have a good amount of money to do so, Myra put in, darkly. Intelligence-wise, We think about this operation as less than 5% of their capacity to build from the military perspective, he said. Silence overtook the bridge as the crew was handed the jolting news. In effect, humanity had settled on solving the problem of invisible enemies by ensuring invisibility didn't matter. And if there was weapons fire in every cubic meter of space, it didn't matter if you could see your target or not. Zara stepped over to the primary tactical display, summoning up a map of Kaltharian space. If Operation Clean Sweep is successful, not only will it eliminate our stealth advantage in these areas, it will show to the whole galaxy that a Terra know as stealth can be fought with just the amount of fire. Then other beasts will learn. Our ways as men, Corvex must have said, all military superiority will be lost in an instant. Also, there's this other thing, Jenna added tentatively. The meat creatures aren't even using secure channels for tactical planning. They don't want to hide what they're doing from us. This was perhaps the most chilling of all. Touted military doctrine was operational security for leaving enemy forces in the dark about your intent, but the humans were broadcasting their plans outright, as if challenging the Kaltharians to stop them. It's psychological warfare, Mira realized. They're not just trying to catch up to our stealth. They're trying to debilitate us by demonstrating how quickly and easily they can make our greatest strength irrelevant. The comm system buzzed again, and this time it was an Earthside direct message. The image on the main screen was a human face, aged and scarred, cold eyes having seen too much war. The translation program marked him as Admiral Jackson Burke, the highest-ranking military official of Mans in the outer colonies. This is a message for the Kaltharian fleet interlopers in the Outer Rim territories, Burke began without introduction. We know you're out there, even if we can't see you. We know you believe that your stealth technology makes you untouchable. We're going to tell you why you're wrong. The human admiral made a gesture to the side, and the view on the transmission changed to a great space station, with weapons emplacements everywhere. This is Fortress Alpha, one of 17 we've established in the disputed zones. Each fortress can keep up the fire for half a year without replenishment. Each of those can fill 10,000 kilometers space with enough firepower to blow a known vessel out of existence. The camera cut back to Burke's face. We don't have to see you to kill you. We need to make sure there's nowhere to hide. In 72 hours, we will show what that looks like. The holographic transmission cut off, and the Kaltharian bridge was filled with silence. 3 days to pull their forces out of 17 star systems, or face annihilation not by clever tactics or amazing tech, but by sheer, overwhelming firepower. Recommendations, Corvex inquired, his tone indicating he already did. We withdraw, Zara said immediately. We cannot benefit from sacrificing our ships to this indiscriminate attack. Agreed, Myra added. We have to have time to invent new strategies, new technologies. It's suicide to fight them on their own terms. For Corvex to unconsciously agree, moving his head back and forth, it must be excruciating when he has developed his career around Kaltharian military superiority. Issue the withdrawal order. Withdraw all stealth forces behind human perimeter lines now. Zara reflected on the broader implications of this war as the bridge crew began to carry out the evacuation. The Kaltharian Empire had always prided itself on elegant military solutions. Their stealth was a work of genius, the ultimate integration of science and strategy, not overcome by any for 2,000 years. But humans had defeated it not with greater engineering or tactical cunning, but through a kind of brutal, unyielding pragmatism. They discovered that stealth technology worked only if the enemy cared about accuracy, about effectiveness, about reducing unintended effects. Apparently humans didn't give a hoot about any of these things. 3 days later, Operation Clean Sweep was launched. The Kaltharian command vessel observed at a safe distance as humans converted 17 star systems to charnel fields. Sheer magnitude of the bombardment was unprecedented in recorded military history. Moya and the other drivers returned fire with their machine guns and automated weapons platforms. The lines of rending energy in counterpoint to each other until the entire battlefield shone and there was not a single spot in which to stand anymore. Planets were blackened, asteroids reduced to vapor, and even the void blazed with the fury of man's weapons. The shelling lasted 6 months without intermission. The humans had known exactly how much they'd had to hit those systems with to make sure nothing could survive, and had done so with industrial accuracy. Supply trains came in on time with ammunition supplies. The weapons platforms were kept running by maintenance crews that labored around the clock. It was all carried on with the efficient clanking of a factory assembly line, and when it was done, when the humans at last ran out of weapons and the weapons had ultimately failed and the dropships could no longer leap between the stars, only the 17 star systems were left to the Andes, and only one human, a lean and slice-haired client of Cryocom, was still alive in them. Nothing bigger than a grain of sand could have lived through such prolonged shelling, had any Kaltharian ships been lurking in those systems. They were now little more than atomic particles flung out into the nothingness between the stars. The demonstration was complete. Stealth, the technology which was the bedrock of Kaltharian military superiority, had become obsolete not through progress, but rather through the simple solution of shooting everything in the months that followed. Other species throughout the galaxy started taking lessons from the humans. The elegant calibration of classic space warfare was replaced by a doctrine of massed firepower and industrial strength. Battles were more a matter of looking after resources than tactical cunning. Zara was once again at the observation deck window, looking out at the stars off in the distance while deep in thought about the universe man had made. The galaxy couldn't be home to invisible ships that could strike without notice. It was a place where survival was determined not by whose technology was better, but whose productive capacity was higher. Where success came not for the most sophisticated, but the most soulless. Any regrets? Corvex was at her side and had yet to even fully reach the observation window. Zara considered the question carefully. About losing the war. No, about the way we lost it. Absolutely, explain. We spent 2 millennia perfecting the art of invisible warfare. We devised something that was by any objective metric better than anything a human had at the time. We should have won, but we didn't, because we forgot the most fundamental lesson from military history. No technology can overcome the ability of our troops to employ that technology. We got so wrapped up in mastering one side of our stealth, we never thought about what would happen if the enemy decided to throw away the very rules of engagement that we had molded our strategy around. Corvex nodded thoughtfully. The humans did not attempt to replicate our technology. They altered the character of the battlefield entirely, and they did it through sheer bloody-minded desire to win at all costs. They would lose efficiency, elegance, even the thing within their own domain to win. We weren't. Wait, there's a priority from Earth. The conversation is interrupted. This one is for the Kaltharian leadership, and it is from the top of human government. The face of President Sarah Chen appeared on the screen, surrounded by military advisors and diplomats. She looked stern, but not unfriendly as she spoke. "People of the Kaltharian Empire, I come not as an enemy, but as the ruler of a race that has become respectful of your potential. Your raid avoidance technology is some bloody good physics. Your army has fought with courage and resolved this entire war." Zara and Corvex looked at each other, trying to figure out where this surprise diplomatic overture was going. But Chen added, "This war has shown that you can't just rely on technological superiority to win a war in modern warfare. We have both learned valuable lessons about the reality of conflict in space age. It's time, we believe, to apply that same lesson to making a lasting peace." The transmission cut to a detailed peace treaty that was surprisingly good, too. The defeated Kaltharians, what the humans were suggesting was not unconditional surrender, but rather a negotiated settlement in which the Kaltharian Empire remained as a whole in return for cooperation in technology and trade agreements. "We are not interested in conquest," Chen said. "We're interested in coexistence. With your cloaking technology and our manufacturing capability, our species could be much safer from an external threat. We're presenting it as a partnership, not as a subjugation." The offer was a surprise, and Zara had to admit, pretty tempting. The humans had demonstrated they could annihilate the Kaltharian fleet at will. The very fact that they were offering an honorable peace rather than unilateral surrender implied a degree of strategic depth that went beyond sheer military superiority. "What do you think?" Corvex asked. Zara scrutinized the offer, searching for any hidden nooses and hoping there weren't any impossible stipulations. Instead, she discovered an incredibly fair agreement that appeared to suit both species. "I believe they have left us another lesson about human nature, which is, they don't destroy things alone, they're good at. They've also built things well, and they're wise enough to know that the fullest victory is the one that converts your enemies into friends." The peace talks lasted for several months, with both species working to come to terms with the details of their new relationship. The last treaty was signed on a neutral station located between human and Kaltharian space, where Admiral Burke and Admiral Thane signed a document that would change the face of the galaxy. The Empire would share the designs for their cloaking tech with human forces in exchange of knowledge about Earth's manufacturing capabilities and industry. New technology, in which the strengths of both civilizations could be joined, would be generated through cooperative research projects, and most importantly, the treaty set forth a precedent on interspecies cooperation which would eventually be adopted by other galactic powers. But instead of the old pattern of conquerors and the conquered, humans and Kaltharians proved that one-time enemies could become allies in mutual defense and mutual exploration. Eng. Verse 1, 5 years after the war, Zara is a liaison officer on a joint human-Kaltharian ship sailing the starry roads of the galaxy rim. The ship itself was a blend of opposing technologies. It had some of the newest stealth gear on the market and was designed to bring to the fight the type of overwhelming firepower that had helped human forces clear so many worlds. The crew was divided in half between the two species, an acrimonious relationship whose tension had dissipated years ago, which simply made them work with the kind of unified efficiency that can only come from mutual respect and purpose. Human engineers had come to marvel at the graceful efficiency of Kaltharian technology, Kaltharian officers to respect the crude determination of humanity. "Contact on the long-range sensors," announced Lieutenant Kyle Morrison, the human tactical officer. "Unknown ship. Design not in database." Zara went to the sensor station to see what she could learn. The unknown ship was huge, larger than anything in either human or Kaltharian records, and its energy signature indicated technology. They had never encountered. First contact situation, she asked. Looks like it, Morrison confirmed. It's nearing us. They're not responding to hails. On the bridge, Captain Elena Baskis, the female human commander of the joint vessel, positioned herself. And much like most of her memes, she'd been born during the war with their Kaltharian adversaries and was educated in the appreciation for both advanced technology and crushing force when diplomacy was no longer an option. Vasquez asked. Zara considered their options. Back in the old days, the Kaltharian would have cloaked and watched, learning what there was to learn from the dark Shri cylindrical hiding place. The human reaction would have been to go to war footing, unleash overwhelming firepower if the unknown ship was hostile. Combined approach, Zara suggested. We pop FSD to silent running and move to a flanking position, but we keep weapons charged and ready for full fire if they are interdicting us for a haul shot. Vasquez nodded approvingly. The best of both doctrines. Stealth for intel work, and disproportionate force if that doesn't work. The joint vessel shimmered to a stop. Its Kaltharian-engineered stealth field turning it all but invisible while its human-fabricated weapons platforms charged and recharged. Enough firepower to light up anything less than a dwarf planet. It was a beautiful fusion of the two military philosophies that once seemed antithetical. Since they'd started examining the mysterious craft, Zara had been thinking about everything their two races had gotten out of their wars. The war had devastated thousands of lives and squandered incalculable resources. But it had also led both sides to reevaluate their very premises about warfare and diplomacy. The Kaltharians had learned the hard way that the best technology in the universe counted for nothing without the industrial capability to support it, and the tactical agility to change the game when opponents chose to disregard the old rules. People had discovered that brute force was effective, but not always the best way to solve complicated problems. They had made something new together, a military doctrine that joined stealth with firepower, precision with overwhelming force, elegance with practicality. It was a coalition that left both weaker than they had ever been on their own. The unidentified craft eventually answered some of their attempts at communication with a complicated mathematical sequence of numbers and symbols, which they thought, naively, was a peaceful protocol of first contact. Captain Vasquez had the weapons locked down while remaining invisible, poised to either negotiate or pound them into the dirt, as events may dictate. As the first burst of dialogue rose between the composite human Kaltharian crew and the enigmatic Xenos, Zara found herself unable to suppress a grin at the irony of the situation. A war based on the premise that one side's stealth technology was ineffective had produced something far more valuable, a partnership of two species that had learned to merge their assets and make up for each other's shortcomings. The invisibility tech that had initially given the Kaltharians a hefty military dominance was still intact. But now it was complemented by the human philosophy of crushing force, together forming a combination that was more effective than either ever had been. By itself, these humans hadn't exactly beaten Kaltharian stealth technology in the final analysis. All it had done was teach the galaxy that no one could rely, no matter how advanced his technology, on a technological advantage to guarantee victory if his enemy was prepared to redefine warfare entirely. And in learning that lesson, they had inadvertently laid the groundwork for a new type of galactic civilization, one predicated not on the supremacy of this race or that technology, but on the cooperation between peoples who had been forced to recognize the strengths of their enemies. The war has ended. But the alliance formed in honor of it will alter the fate of the galaxy for generations. And there, hidden somewhere out, there in the void between star systems, invisible ships moved in concert with ships so well armed they could sterilize entire star systems. And the most powerful weapon of all turned out to be the wisdom to know when to fight and when to build something better together.